The moment the world learned of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's sudden death, there was a collective pause. Tributes poured in, fans mourned, and Hollywood reeled. But behind the walls of SCI Phoenix, the Pennsylvania State Prison where Bill Cosby is serving his sentence, the reaction was something else entirely. Something far more intimate and far more devastating. According to multiple sources, the 87-year-old former TV icon was quietly reading legal documents in his cell when a corrections officer approached him with an urgent headline. At first, Cosby reportedly stared blankly at the words, "Malcolm-Jamal Warner found dead." One inmate who witnessed the moment described it as chilling. He froze, like he saw a ghost. Then he said, "No, no, not Theo." Cosby reportedly clutched his chest and collapsed onto his bunk. Within minutes, guards had escorted him to the prison infirmary under medical observation, initially attributing it to a stress-induced fainting spell. But those close to the disgraced star say what happened wasn't just medical. It was emotional. It wasn't just about grief. It may have been guilt. To understand Cosby's collapse, you have to understand what Malcolm meant to him. Long before the legal scandals, the accusations, and the fall from grace, Cosby was America's TV dad, and Malcolm-Jamal Warner, as Theo Huxtable, was his on-screen son. But their relationship was never just fiction. In real life, Cosby mentored Malcolm from the time he was 14. He saw potential in him and took him under his wing. He rewrote scripts to give Theo more depth, more screen time. He coached him between scenes, guided his career, and often referred to him as like a son. Veteran crew members from The Cosby Show said Cosby's connection to Malcolm bordered on obsessive at times, but it came from a place of genuine care. Malcolm, for his part, was respectful, talented, and fiercely intelligent. He stayed grounded, never succumbing to the pitfalls of child stardom, a fact Cosby always attributed to Pamela Warner, Malcolm's mother. Cosby once told a producer, "That kid has an old soul and a mother who won't let him fall." But time changes people. As Malcolm grew older, he found his own voice. He began writing poetry, directing, producing, and creating music. He dated A-list stars like Regina King. His career took new directions, and with it came distance, from Hollywood, from fame, and eventually from Cosby. When Cosby's legal troubles exploded in the media, dozens of women accusing him of sexual assault. Many of his former co-stars took sides. Some, like Felicia Rashad, defended him publicly. Others turned away. But Malcolm's silence stood out. He didn't attack Cosby. He didn't support him either. In interviews, he brushed off questions with vague replies. "It's complicated," or "I'd rather not comment." But to Cosby, that silence cut deeper than any public condemnation. A longtime friend of Cosby's allegedly told the Black Star Report, "Bill used to say, 'I taught him everything. Why won't he pick up the phone?'" That unreturned call became a metaphor for the chasm between the two men. And now it was permanent. Behind bars, Cosby was left to confront the loss in solitude. Guards say he kept whispering, "He was my son. He was my son." Other inmates noticed a change in him, more withdrawn, more fragile. A prison nurse who saw him in the infirmary described it bluntly. "That broke him in a way no trial ever did." But Cosby wasn't the only one mourning in silence. When Malcolm's name began trending after news of his death broke, another name quickly followed: Regina King. Their relationship had long flown under the radar, private, quiet, powerful. Fans saw them as a perfect match. Two artists, both thoughtful and principled, who had found healing in one another. While they officially dated in the early 2000s, Insiders say the spark began much earlier, back in the late 1980s, when Regina was filming 227 and Malcolm was the rising heartthrob of The Cosby Show. They were just teens, but there was always something there. When they finally connected as adults, both had already endured personal heartbreaks. Regina was a single mom, recently divorced. Malcolm had pulled back from the spotlight to focus on music and directing. Friends said their bond was magnetic. More than romantic, it was soulful. He adored her son. She believed in his art. They stayed out of the tabloids, and for a while, it seemed like forever. Then, in 2013, it ended. Quietly, without scandal or explanation. Red carpet appearances stopped. Social media went silent. Even Oprah tried to get answers on Super Soul Sunday, asking Regina why they broke up. Her response was raw. Sometimes love isn't enough. Timing matters. Malcolm never spoke publicly about the split, but those close to him say he never really moved on. One friend revealed he still kept photos of Regina and her son on his phone. He'd light up any time someone mentioned her, they said. So when Regina received the news of Malcolm's death, it wasn't just the grief of a former lover. It was the grief of someone who had once believed this love might return. She reportedly collapsed upon hearing the news. Those close to her said she was inconsolable. Just a few years earlier, she had lost her only son, Ian Alexander Jr., to suicide. And now, this. Another light extinguished. In a tearful Instagram post, Regina shared a single photo of Malcolm and captioned it, "I've lost many things in this life, but this one shattered me. Sleep well, my friend, my love, my light." Now, fans are calling on Netflix to release a limited series that Malcolm and Regina had been quietly developing. A biopic rooted in themes of love, loss, and legacy. It was meant to be their creative reunion, their shared return. Now, it may serve as a final tribute to what could have been. As tributes continue to pour in, one thing is clear. Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death left more than a void. It exposed the unfinished conversations, the unresolved grief, and the complex humanity behind the public personas we thought we knew. For Bill Cosby, it was the son he never got to say goodbye to. For Regina King, it was the love that might have been rekindled. For the world, it was the loss of a gifted soul taken far too soon. And for Pamela Warner, it was everything. The loss that shook a family, remembering Malcolm-Jamal Warner. To the world, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was Theo Huxtable, the charming, thoughtful son of America's most iconic sitcom family. But to those who worked with him, grew up beside him, and shared their lives with him, he was far more than just a co-star. He was family. His death at the age of 54 sent ripples across Hollywood. But for the cast of The Cosby Show and Black Hollywood at large, it was a devastating loss that reopened old bonds, fractured hearts, and stirred painful questions. Felicia Rashad, who played his on-screen mother, Claire Huxtable, shared a connection with Malcolm that transcended the script. For decades, he called her Mama Rashad, and she often spoke of him as a son, not only in character, but in spirit. "I've known Malcolm since he was a boy," she wrote in a public statement. "A bright, warm, fiercely intelligent young man who became a deep, grounded, creative force. This world was lucky to have him, and I was blessed to call him my son on and off the screen." When the news broke, Rashad reportedly broke down in tears, retreating from the press and choosing to grieve in private. Raven Simonet, who played Olivia, Theo's cousin in the series, went live on Instagram within minutes of hearing the news. Tearful and shaken, she whispered, "He was one of the real ones. He looked out for me when I was just a kid." He told me not to let Hollywood change me. I didn't listen to a lot of people, but I listened to him. I'm broken. Tempest Bledsoe, who portrayed Vanessa Huxtable, shared an emotional throwback photo from their final season, captioned simply, "We laughed until we cried in this moment. Today, I'm crying for real. Rest easy, Mal. You were always the heart of the set." Even Bill Cosby, now estranged from much of Hollywood due to his legal controversies, issued a rare statement through his legal team. "Malcolm was my son. I raised him on screen and watched him become a man. This is a loss beyond words." Keisha Knight Pulliam, who played Rudy, offered one of the most heart-wrenching tributes on her podcast just hours after the news broke. "He pulled me aside during our final taping and said, 'Promise me, whatever happens in life, don't let the world harden your heart.'" She sobbed as she added, "He lived by those words. He was the glue for us. I don't know what we're going to do without him." Tributes poured in beyond the Huxtable family. Debbie Allen called him a quiet giant. Denzel Washington wrote that Malcolm had a dignity about him that never needed to be loud. Zendaya and John Boyega shared posts thanking him for his example of black boyhood on screen, and the hashtag #ThankYouTheo quickly trended worldwide. But the grief was met with one burning question: how did Malcolm-Jamal Warner die? Initial reports claimed it was an accidental drowning near a private estate in Southern California. He had been staying at a quiet oceanfront retreat he often used to escape the pressures of work and fame. But those close to him say the circumstances were far more complicated. Friends revealed that in recent months, Malcolm had grown distant. He wasn't returning calls. When he did, his responses were short, distracted. He kept saying he needed time to clear his head, one longtime colleague said. Just weeks before his death, Malcolm had withdrawn from a high-profile TV project that was expected to mark his return to primetime. No statement, no public explanation. He simply vanished from the production. Even more haunting, a personal journal was found near the scene of his death, filled with emotional entries that some are now calling a cry for help. While the coroner's office initially listed the cause of death as drowning, toxicology results are still pending. Theories have surfaced. Some tabloids point to substance use. Others suggest undiagnosed mental health struggles or chronic health issues. A former assistant has claimed Malcolm was quietly battling depression and had dealt with long-standing heart problems that were never made public. Still, his family remains silent. His mother, Pamela Warner, issued only one brief and devastating statement. "I have lost my son, my light, and my soul's deepest joy. I ask for your prayers, not your questions." Days before his passing, Malcolm had posted a cryptic quote on his private Instagram story. "People always say I'm not okay." Fans now read those words like a final message, one no one fully understood until it was too late. A former college roommate told Variety, "Being Theo meant being perfect, being the model, the role model. But Malcolm was more than a character. He carried all of that on his back, and it wore him down. He didn't always feel he had space to be human." That statement has since sparked a wider conversation about the emotional toll of child stardom, especially for black actors, many of whom suffer in silence. And for Regina King, that silence is almost unbearable. The public didn't hear much from her in the days following Malcolm's death. Just one black-and-white photo on Instagram, captioned with 3 devastating words: "I'm shattered forever." Their relationship had always been deeply private, beginning in the early 2000s, but rooted in a mutual respect dating back to the 1980s. As two of Black Hollywood's most beloved artists, they protected their bond fiercely. They were never tabloid regulars. Their love was quiet, authentic, and for a time, healing. But in 2013, it ended without fanfare. Malcolm moved out, and Regina never gave a full explanation, once hinting in an interview, "Sometimes the people you love most are the ones who hurt you the deepest." But according to sources close to both, the story didn't end there. Quiet industry whispers suggested they reconnected in 2021. There were texts, meetings, conversations. Whether they were rekindling romance or simply rebuilding friendship, one thing was clear: the door hadn't fully closed. For Regina, who had already endured the unthinkable, the 2022 suicide of her only son, Ian Alexander Jr., Malcolm's death felt like a second heartbreak she wasn't prepared for. "She's not talking to anyone right now," said a friend. "She's writing, she's praying, but she's broken. This feels like the final straw." Fans have flooded her with messages of support. "Losing your son, and now your soulmate. God, protect Regina King," one user wrote. Others called for the Cosby Show cast to publicly uplift her, recognizing that her grief was not only valid, but profoundly intertwined with Malcolm's legacy. In the end, Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just Theo. He was a beacon of Black excellence, vulnerability, and quiet strength. A son, a brother, a love. And now, a voice gone too soon, leaving behind echoes of what he gave and what he carried.